The tiny crowned one who played with hearts to hide her pain. Far beyond the quiet edge of the Orion Arm, where stars burned in strange colors and ships moved like silent ghosts between them, there was a trade world called Nerith. It was not a powerful planet. It had no grand army or ancient glory. It was simply a meeting place. Merchants, warlords, scientists, and rulers for many species came there to talk, to trade, and sometimes to threaten each other without starting a war. On this world, in a hall made of dark crystal and silver metal, the Grand Conclave was gathering. The conclave was not a friendly meeting, it was a tense one. Several empires had been pushing their fleets closer to human space. Rumors of invasion moved like cold wind through the galaxy. Humans were not feared. They were not admired. They were seen as small, emotional, and fragile. Their worlds were young compared to the ancient civilizations that filled the stars. Many believed it was only a matter of time before humanity would be divided and ruled. The great hall was filled with towering figures. Some had scales that shone under the lights. Some had smooth gray skin and black eyes without pupils. Others floated inside clear energy fields, their true forms hidden inside shifting light. At the center of the hall stood a long platform where leaders would speak. When the doors opened, everyone expected another alien envoy, or perhaps a human general in heavy armor. Instead, a small human girl walked in. She looked no older than 12. She wore a simple white dress and soft boots. On her head rested a thin silver crown. It was not large or decorated with jewels. It was plain, almost delicate. The hall grew quiet, not out of respect, but confusion. A tall alien commander with blue-armored skin leaned forward. His voice echoed like stone grinding together. Is this some kind of joke? The human representatives near the back looked just as surprised. They had not announced any royal delegate. The girl walked calmly to the center platform. She did not rush. She did not look afraid. Her steps were small but steady. When she reached the center, she looked around the massive hall. Her eyes were soft gray, almost silver like her crown. "My name is Luma," she said in a clear and gentle voice. "I am here on behalf of Earth." Murmurs filled the chamber. Earth was damaged, weakened after past conflicts. Many thought its leadership was broken. A floating delegate wrapped in green energy drifted closer. "Earth has no active monarchy. Records confirm this." Luma nodded. "That is correct. There is no throne anymore. Only responsibility." The tall blue commander laughed. The sound was harsh. "Responsibility? You are a child." "I am small," she answered, "but I am not unaware." Some of the alien leaders shifted uncomfortably. There was something strange about her calmness. She did not show the fear most humans displayed in rooms like this. A human officer stepped out from the shadows near the entrance. He wore a dark uniform with no medals. His posture was straight, and his expression was serious. His name was Kale. He did not speak. He simply watched. Luma continued. "I know many of you are considering war against human colonies. I know fleets are already moving." The hall became very still. That information was not public. A sharp-voiced reptilian delegate narrowed his golden eyes. "And how would a child know classified fleet movements?" Luma tilted her head slightly. "Because fear speaks loudly even when mouths do not." The blue commander stood from his seat. He was enormous compared to her. "Enough games! If humanity has something to say, send a warrior or a diplomat." "I am both," Luma said softly. Laughter spread across the chamber, but she did not react to it. She simply raised one hand. The silver crown on her head gave off a faint pulse of light. It was not bright, just a soft shimmer. "I would like to propose something different," she said. "Before you choose war, let us play a game." Silence fell again.
"A game?" the floating delegate asked.
"Yes, not a battle of weapons, a test of understanding." The reptilian delegate hissed. "We do not play games with weak species." Luma looked directly at him. Her expression did not change, but her voice grew slightly firmer.
"You already are." The reptilian delegate froze.
A few leaders glanced at him in confusion. Luma continued. You are pushing your fleets closer to human borders not because you need resources, but because you fear internal rebellion. You believe a quick victory over humans will unite your people. The reptilian delegate's claws tightened on the edge of his seat. That information is restricted, he growled. You lost 2 hatchling heirs last cycle during a civil riot, Luma said quietly. Your people blame you. The hall became completely silent. No one outside his empire knew about the hatchlings. The reptilian delegate slowly sat down. His eyes were wide now, not with anger but shock. Luma turned her gaze to the blue-armored commander. And you, she said gently, are not seeking conquest. You are trying to distract your council from your failure at the Rim campaign. The blue commander's breathing grew heavier. You ordered a retreat to save your soldiers, she continued. But your culture honors only victory. You carry the shame alone. The large commander did not speak. Some leaders looked at him with surprise, others with new understanding. Kale remained still near the door, but his hand hovered near the weapon at his side. The floating delegate spoke again, slower this time. You claim to know our secrets. How? Luma touched the edge of her silver crown. I do not read thoughts. I listen to emotions. They are stronger than words. That is impossible, someone whispered.
Not impossible, she answered, only ignored. She lowered her hand.
My game is simple. Each of you must sit with your greatest rival here. You will enter a shared memory chamber. For 1 hour, you will feel one memory from the other. Not a battle, not a victory, a moment of loss. Outrage broke out immediately. This is manipulation. This is humiliation. This is weakness. Luma waited until the noise faded.
You are all strong, she said.
You command fleets that can burn planets, but you cannot endure 1 hour of truth?
The words hit harder than any insult. The blue commander looked at the reptilian delegate. They had threatened each other for years. Slowly he spoke. If this is deception, humanity will answer for it.
It is not deception, Luma said calmly.
The floating delegate studied her carefully. And if we refuse, then you will return to your ships, she replied.
You will attack human colonies. Many will die.
But you will still carry the same fear inside you. The hall was silent again. Finally, the floating delegate said, Very well, one test. The reptilian delegate hissed but did not object. The blue commander gave a stiff nod. Memory chambers were brought into the hall. They were small devices used for cultural exchange, rarely for political leaders. The blue commander and the reptilian delegate stepped inside one chamber. Luma stood quietly in the center of the room as everyone watched. The chamber activated. Soft light filled the inside. Minutes passed. Outside, tension filled the air. Then the chamber doors opened. The blue commander stepped out first. His heavy face showed something new. Not anger, not pride. Understanding. The reptilian delegate followed. His golden eyes were dimmer. They looked at each other for a long moment. The reptilian delegate spoke first. Your soldiers sang before battle. The blue commander nodded. They were afraid. A quiet understanding passed between them. The hall murmured in disbelief. One by one, other rival leaders agreed to enter chambers. Some emerged with tears in their eyes, others with silent expressions. Hatred did not vanish, but certainty cracked. Throughout it all, Luma remained calm. Yet as the final chamber powered down, a small flicker of strain crossed her face. It was quick, almost invisible. Kale noticed. High above the hall, hidden in a ventilation shaft, a shadow moved. A masked assassin adjusted a compact energy rifle. His target lock centered on the small silver crown. He had been hired by a coalition that feared what was happening here. Unity was more dangerous than war. He steadied his aim. Below, the floating delegate approached Luma. You have shifted something today, child. I did not shift it, she replied softly. It was already moving. The assassin fired. But just before the shot reached her, Luma turned her head slightly. "You are too early," she whispered. A flash of hidden defense drones dropped from the ceiling. A shield snapped into place around her. The energy blast struck it and scattered. Chaos erupted. Security forces swarmed the upper levels. The assassin tried to flee but was captured within seconds. Leaders shouted. Guards drew weapons. Luma did not move. Kale rushed to her side. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No." The assassin was dragged into the center of the hall. His mask was removed. He was not from any major empire, a hired blade. "Who sent you?" demanded the blue commander. The assassin stayed silent. Luma stepped forward slightly. Kale tried to stop her, but she gently moved past him. She looked at the assassin with quiet eyes. "You were told I would bring weakness," she said softly. "You were told I would make the strong hesitate."
The assassin's jaw tightened.
"You are afraid too," she added. For a moment his expression cracked. The leaders watched closely. "Take him away," ordered the floating delegate. As the assassin was removed, the hall remained tense. The floating delegate turned back to Luma. "Your presence has changed the direction of this conclave." "That was the purpose," she replied. "And what do you truly want?" the blue commander asked. Luma's hand lightly touched her crown again. "I want no child," she said quietly, "on any world to watch the sky burn." There was a weight behind those words that did not match her small frame. The leaders slowly returned to their seats. The conclave was no longer about invasion plans. It had become something uncertain. As the session ended, ships outside the planet delayed their fleet movements. Inside a quiet chamber later that night, Luma stood alone before a hologram of a blue planet cracked by orbital strikes. Her smile was gone. The silver crown dimly glowed. She reached out and touched the broken image. "I will not fail again," she whispered. Outside her chamber, Kale stood guard in silence. Far beyond Nereth, in deep space, an unknown warship changed its course toward the planet. The tiny crowned girl had taken her first step, and the galaxy had begun to listen. The halls of the Nereth conclave were quieter than usual the morning after Luma's first demonstration of the memory chambers. Many leaders were still speaking in hushed tones. Some had left in shock, some were curious, and others were angry. But no one could deny the effect the tiny crowned girl had caused. Her words, so soft, had reached places that fleets and weapons never could. Luma stood by a large window overlooking the city below. The trade spires rose like silver needles into the sky, and shuttles drifted between them like small, glowing insects. She had expected that her game would unsettle the leaders, but she had not expected such a strong reaction. Her small body had endured more emotional weight than she had thought possible. The memory chambers did not only show others' pain, they reflected some of it back into her. Kale stood silently behind her. His posture was firm, his eyes scanning the city and the sky beyond. He had been trained to see danger before it arrived, but even he found it difficult to predict what might happen next. Luma turned slightly, catching his gaze. "I did not hurt them," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I only let them see truth." Kale nodded. "Truth can hurt more than weapons." Luma smiled faintly. "Then we are ready for what comes next." The next hours were tense. The alien leaders returned, not to confront her, but to observe. Some of them approached her with caution, others with curiosity. No one dared speak of war in the presence of the tiny crowned girl. Her influence was growing, and with it, the fear of her potential. Then the warning came. The sensors in the chamber picked up a vessel moving at extreme speed. It was cloaked, but the patterns were familiar. Kale's eyes narrowed. "A strike ship," he said. "Someone thinks today is the day we die." Luma turned her eyes to the viewport. The stars were steady, but there was a streak of light bending toward Nereth, a dark shadow among the stars. Her heart did not race. Instead, it pulsed calmly. "They underestimate us," she said. The ship's arrival was sudden. In less than a minute it emerged above the city, its weapon ports glowing red. Its design was unlike anything she had seen before. It was sleek, dark, and deadly. A small signal beam flickered across the sky, broadcasting a single word to the conclave. Die. The alien leaders froze. Some called for their fleets to respond. Others hesitated, unsure of how to act without understanding what they faced. Kale took Luma's hand, guiding her to the defensive platform. "We need to protect you," he said. "I will not hide," she replied softly. "I am not afraid." As the strike ship descended, drones emerged from hidden compartments in the conclave hall. They moved with incredible speed, forming a protective barrier around Luma. Energy shields flickered and hums filled the room. The attackers fired, but the drones intercepted every shot. The alien leaders watched in disbelief as the tiny girl remained untouched. She stood in the center, her silver crown glowing faintly, a symbol of calm in the storm. The strike ship fired again, but this time a pulse wave from the crown redirected the energy. The ship's shields failed, and it spun away, retreating into the darkness of space. Luma exhaled slowly. "That was a warning," she said. "Not the first, not the last." Kale's eyes scanned the room. "Someone knows about your influence," he said. "They are afraid of you or what you might do." Luma nodded. "I cannot stop them from fearing me, but I can show them another way." For the rest of the day, she continued her games. She paired other leaders in the memory chambers. Ancient rivalries and grudges surfaced, and for the first time some of them felt something they had not felt in centuries: understanding. By evening, the conclave hall had transformed. What was once a place of tension and suspicion now hummed with uncertainty, curiosity, and a fragile hope. But not all leaders were convinced. Some whispered to each other that Luma's games were dangerous. They said that manipulating emotions was a power no human should wield. Among them was Varric, a massive warlord with black and red scaled skin. He had watched the events with quiet anger. He did not fear Luma's crown. He feared her influence over others. Her ability to change hearts without a weapon threatened his authority. In his mind, one day she would be either an ally or an enemy, and if she were an enemy, he would destroy her. That night, as the conclave quieted and most leaders left for their quarters, Luma sat alone in her chamber. Kale brought her a small meal, but she only touched it. Her eyes remained fixed on a holographic projection of a blue planet, broken and scarred by past attacks. "I remember," she whispered. "I should have saved them. I should have." Kale placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You did what you could, Luma. You are doing more now than anyone else could." She looked at him, her gray eyes reflecting pain and determination. "And yet they do not see it. They see only the crown, the games, the girl. They do not see the losses I carry inside." Kale knelt beside her. "They will see eventually. But first, we must survive the ones who refuse to understand." Outside the chamber, the city lights reflected off the tall spires, and a shadow moved silently. A new threat had arrived. Luma could sense it, though it had not yet revealed itself. The energy around the crown pulsed faintly, reacting to the unseen danger. The next morning, Luma entered the main hall once again. Her small figure moved through the towering leaders with grace. The air was thick with tension. Rumors of the previous night's attack had spread quickly. Some leaders were frightened, others angry. Kale followed closely behind, alert to any movement. His hand hovered near the concealed weapon at his side. The blue commander from the previous day stepped forward. "You have survived a strike. That is unusual for humans." Luma smiled faintly. "I survive because I must. Survival is not always about strength." Varric's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You manipulate hearts. You should not be allowed to influence those who command fleets."
"I do not manipulate," Luma said calmly. "I show truth."
"I show fear, loss, and hope. That is all." The hall grew silent. No one spoke. Luma's words had a weight they could not dismiss. Then the conclave began again, this time with a different tone. The memory chambers were used more widely. Leaders who had previously refused now stepped forward. Some shared moments of personal failure, others moments of loss. By the afternoon, the atmosphere had shifted from hostility to cautious respect. Yet even as understanding grew, danger remained. From the shadows of the galaxy, fleets began to mobilize. A coalition of empires, fearing Luma's influence, plotted to remove her before she could unite the galaxy through truth rather than war. Kale remained vigilant, watching over her with unwavering loyalty. He had been trained to defend leaders, but Luma was no ordinary leader. She did not ask for protection in the usual sense. She asked him to watch, to observe, and to act when the unseen threat approached. Days passed. Luma continued to meet leaders, mediate disputes, and challenge old grudges. Her reputation spread beyond Nereth. Messages of curiosity and fear traveled across light years faster than any fleet. Stories of the tiny crowned girl who read hearts were whispered in private chambers, in hidden war rooms, and on trading stations. Meanwhile, Varek prepared. He gathered spies and scouts, studying Luma's patterns. He believed that her influence could be broken, but he also realized that brute force would not work. He needed a plan that would strike at her and test the loyalty of those she had influenced. One evening, Kale approached Luma quietly. "The coalition grows stronger," he said. "They will not wait long before they attempt something more direct." Luma looked out at the horizon, the silver crown faintly glowing in the dim light of Nereth's twin moons. "Let them come," she said softly. "If they strike, they will learn more than fear. They will learn their own hearts." Kale frowned. "That is dangerous." "I know," she said. "But truth is never safe. It is always a risk, and we must risk it if we wish to survive." Night fell over Nereth, and the city lights flickered like tiny stars below. Somewhere on the vast reaches of space, fleets shifted. Shadow ships moved between stars, their intentions hidden. The first test had passed, but the true challenge was yet to come. Luma stood silently by the window, her crown dim but steady. Kale watched her, his heart uneasy. He knew that the coming days would test not just their bodies, but their minds and their hearts. As the night deepened, a soft chime echoed through the chamber, a signal from the distant edge of the system. Unknown ships were arriving. The galaxy was stirring. Luma turned slightly, her expression calm but resolute. "We are ready," she whispered. "The game has only just begun." The city of Nereth was quiet in the early morning, but not peaceful. The twin suns had just begun to rise, painting the silver spires with pale gold light, yet shadows moved between the buildings like whispers of danger. Luma walked along the top of one of the tallest towers, her white dress fluttering slightly in the soft wind. Her silver crown caught the sunlight, glinting faintly, though it seemed dimmer than before. Kale followed closely behind. He had grown accustomed to Luma's calm confidence, but he could not ignore the weight she carried. The memory chambers had been used again the previous day, and many leaders were still shaken. Some were beginning to question old alliances, while others were quietly plotting to undermine her influence. "You are restless," Kale said. His voice was low, careful. "Do you feel something?" "I feel many things," Luma replied, her gray eyes scanning the horizon. "But mostly the past. It is reaching toward me, calling me." Kale frowned. "The past of Earth?" She nodded. "Yes. I have carried it for so long, and now it is time to face it."
He glanced at her, concerned.
"You have never spoken of it fully. Not to me. Not to anyone. Why now?" "Because if I do not," she said softly, "others will be trapped by lies and fear. And I cannot allow that." They reached a quiet chamber, one of the few in Nereth that had remained untouched by the conclave. Luma activated a holographic projector. The image that appeared was a blue planet, fractured by scars of fire and craters. "This was my home," she said. Earth. It was attacked long ago. Most of its people were killed. Those who survived scattered across the galaxy. I was hidden, protected. But I never forgot. I never stopped remembering. Kale listened silently. His hand rested near the side of his uniform, ready to act, but he did not interrupt. He knew better than to speak over her when she spoke of pain. The crown, she continued, touching the silver band lightly, is not just decoration, it is a device. It can connect with emotions, fear, anger, grief, love. That is how I predicted truths yesterday. Kale's eyes widened slightly. All of that? Through this crown? Yes, she said. It was created long before humans were scattered. It was designed to help our kind survive in a galaxy full of predators, but it comes with a price. Each use draws from my strength, from my very being. I cannot use it without feeling the pain of everyone connected. Kyle swallowed. That explains why you seemed different after the chambers yesterday. I thought it was fatigue, but it was more.
Luma nodded. Yes.
I carry the pain of many. I have carried it for years, in silence, and now it is reaching outward. The galaxy will feel it, and they will either understand or they will fear it. Kale looked at the projection. He remembered Earth from stories, from old images, a planet of green forests and blue oceans, now broken and scattered across the stars.
Do you
regret not saving it? I could not, she whispered. I was too small, too hidden. I was alone, but I can prevent the same from happening to others. That is why I am here. That is why I must act.
Outside, Nareth was stirring. News of the memory chamber's effect had spread quickly.
Leaders were meeting quietly, exchanging worried words. They had seen the power of the tiny crowned girl. Some were intrigued. Some were afraid. And some, like Varric, were planning their revenge. Varric had returned to his flagship, a massive black and red vessel that dwarfed the trade city from orbit. He had studied Luma carefully during the conclave sessions. She had not used weapons. She had not commanded fleets. She had only shown truth. And yet the alliances were beginning to shift. His empire's fleets hesitated. His own allies looked at him differently. He clenched his clawed fists.
A child has made fools of us all, he growled. This ends soon.
She will pay for her influence. Varric summoned his closest generals. They were each massive figures, armored and deadly, each loyal to him but curious about his plans. She manipulates emotions, Varric said. She reads hearts and changes minds without a single shot fired. This is unacceptable. We will strike where she cannot protect herself. We will remove her before she unites the galaxy. One general, covered in silver scales, spoke carefully. My lord, if we act too openly, other leaders may side with her. We risk more than the child. We risk an entire coalition turning against us. Varric's eyes blazed. Then we act secretly. We remove the crown, we remove the girl, and we remove the threat.
Meanwhile, back in Nereth, Luma began preparing for the next round of meetings.
She did not panic at the thought of Varric's fleets or the unknown coalition. Instead, she focused on understanding them. She studied the emotions of those she had seen in the memory chambers. She could feel hesitation, fear, pride, and regret. These were not weaknesses. They were tools. Kale observed her closely. "Do you plan to fight them with the crown?" he asked. "No," she said softly. "I will fight them with their own hearts. Their fear, their regret, their anger, it can all be seen, and it can all be turned."
Days passed.
Luma met with alien leaders one by one. Each meeting was tense, each conversation dangerous. She walked a fine line between showing strength and showing vulnerability. Some leaders were moved to tears, others left in frustration. But each session increased her influence. One day, a delegation arrived from a distant empire that had never interacted with humans before. They were curious, cautious, and openly skeptical. Luma welcomed them calmly. She guided them to a private chamber, smaller than the public memory rooms where she could connect with them individually. The leader of the delegation, a tall being with translucent skin and flowing blue veins, spoke first.
We do not understand your methods.
Why would we allow a child to influence our people? Because understanding is stronger than weapons, Luma replied simply. Because fear leads to destruction. Because truth, once shared, can save lives.
The leader hesitated.
Then, slowly, the chamber activated. Images of loss, hope, and regret filled the space. Memories intertwined, showing victories that were hollow, wars that had caused more pain than gain, and moments of compassion that had been ignored. When the session ended, the leader sat quietly.
I did not expect this, they said. I have seen much, but never like this.
You are small, yet you carry the weight of many.
I carry it because it must be carried,
Luma said. And because if I do not, no one else will. By the evening, news of the session had reached other parts of the galaxy. Fleets paused. Reports described the tiny crowned human who changed minds without a weapon. Some laughed. Some feared. Some plotted revenge. Varric, upon hearing the report, slammed his clawed fist against a console.
Enough delays! Send the strike teams! We will take her tonight!
But Luma's senses were sharp. She could feel the tension in the galaxy, the movement of ships even before they arrived. She turned to Kale. They are coming, she said, but we are ready. That night, the halls of Nereth were filled with hidden security. Drones hovered silently, shields were raised, and the Conclave's leaders were warned to remain inside. When the first strike ships appeared in orbit, Luma did not panic. She stood on the central platform, her crown faintly glowing. She raised a hand, and a pulse of energy radiated outward. The shields on the city responded immediately. The strike ships fired, but their weapons were redirected harmlessly into space. The alien leaders watched in awe. Their fear of the tiny girl was replaced by a cautious respect. Some whispered to each other, realizing that the child had not only protected herself, but the entire city. Kale stood beside her, eyes scanning the horizon. They are persistent, he said. They must be, Luma replied softly. They fear truth more than they fear destruction. As the night continued, strike ships attempted multiple attacks, but each time Luma's crown responded. The city remained unharmed. Varric's frustration grew with every failed strike. Finally, the ships retreated, their fleet scattered and confused. Luma's influence had not only defended Narath, but had forced hesitation in a coalition of empires. Kale watched her closely.
You cannot keep doing this without damage, he warned. The crown will take more from you each time.
I know, Luma said, looking at the broken blue planet projected in her chamber. But I must. Every heart I touch, every mind I change, is a chance to prevent another world from burning. I will endure as long as I can. The night passed slowly, filled with tension and quiet victories. When dawn arrived, Nereth was safe, but the threat of Varric and his allies remained. Luma and Kale stood together on the high tower once more. She looked out at the city, calm but resolute.
This is only the beginning, she said. We have changed their hearts, but war is not yet over.
They will return, and next time they will try harder. Kale nodded, knowing that she was right. Then we must be ready. Yes, Luma whispered, her crown glowing faintly. We must be ready, for the past, for the future, and for every heart that fears pain. And far above, hidden in the darkness of space, Varric and his fleet plotted, unaware that the child they sought to destroy had already begun to change the galaxy in ways they could not yet imagine. The tiny crowned one had survived another day, and with each passing moment, her influence grew, quietly, powerfully, and dangerously. The true test of hearts was only just beginning. The conclave hall of Nereth had never been so full of tension. Leaders from many empires crowded the platform, their faces serious and uncertain. The day had begun with the rising suns casting pale light over the city, but inside, no warmth reached the room. The air was heavy with expectation, fear, and curiosity. Today was not just another meeting. Today was a test. Luma stood in the center, her small frame seemingly fragile among the towering figures. Her white dress swayed gently as she moved, and the silver crown on her head glinted faintly. Cale remained close behind her, always alert, always ready. He knew that the calm she showed on the outside hid a storm of concentration within. Every heartbeat, every memory, every fear in the room flowed through her. She raised her hand slightly. "Today," she said softly, "we will play the game of truth. Not a battle. Not a conquest. Only truth." The leaders shifted uneasily. Some had seen the power of her crown. Others still doubted. Varric, the massive warlord with black and red scales, stepped forward, his voice deep and dangerous. "We are not children to be taught by a girl," he said. "We are rulers. If you attempt to influence us, you will face consequences." Luma's gray eyes met his. "You already feel the consequences, Varric." Every decision made in fear, every fleet deployed out of anger, every life destroyed. It speaks. "I only ask you to listen." Varric sneered but did not interrupt further. The other leaders murmured, unsure how to respond. Luma turned and touched the crown lightly. A soft pulse spread outward, faint at first, and then stronger. The memory chambers were activated again, but this time the effect was larger. Not just one or two leaders would see visions, not just small truths. Luma opened a network of emotional connection that reached every person in the hall. Memories of loss, of pain, of shame, and of courage flooded the space. Some leaders staggered, clutching their chests. The silver crown glowed brighter as the emotions poured through her. Luma did not falter. She focused, guiding the flow, separating fear from anger, regret from pride. Cale watched, tense. Every second the crown was active. Luma absorbed more than any human should endure. Yet she did not stop. Her lips moved softly, whispering calming words to the hearts she touched, words that were stronger than any weapon. Varric's hands tightened on the edge of the platform. He could feel the fear of his own commanders, their hesitation, their doubts. His own shame at past failures, hidden for years, pressed against him. Luma's voice, soft but clear, spoke of his memories, of losses he had buried, of moments of regret he had never faced. "You cannot hide from yourself," she said. "Not here. Not now. Not ever." The hall was silent, except for the soft hum of the memory chambers. Some leaders wept quietly. Others simply stared, stunned. Even Varric's closest generals were affected. For the first time they saw the truth behind their leader's anger, the reason he had sought war instead of peace. And then it happened. The crown began to pulse violently. Luma's small body trembled. The memories of hundreds of lives, of entire fleets and planets, surged through her. Her eyes closed, and she staggered. Cale lunged to catch her. "You are overextending," he said urgently. "Stop." The crown. "I cannot," Luma whispered. Her voice was strained. "Not yet. They must see. They must understand." Varric stepped forward, furious. "Enough," he roared. "If you do not stop, I will destroy you myself." But Luma did not respond. Her hands hovered over the crown, guiding the pulse, focusing it. The hall was flooded with light and emotion. Everyone present could feel the weight of countless hearts, the grief of destroyed worlds, the fear of soldiers in battle, the hope of those who survived. And then, as quickly as it had started, the crown's glow dimmed. Luma collapsed to her knees. Cale caught her before she fell. Her face was pale, but her eyes remained open. The leaders stared in shock. None had expected the tiny girl to endure such a burden. Varric looked away, his pride wounded. He had underestimated the strength of a human child. A floating delegate approached carefully. She is alive?" they whispered. Cale placed a hand on Luma's shoulder. "Yes," he said firmly. "But the crown has taken a toll. We must be careful. She cannot sustain this for long. Luma's voice was faint, but steady.
They must know the truth. That is all that matters.
For hours the leaders remained in the hall. They could not speak, not fully. The images they had seen, the memories they had felt, lingered in their minds. Some tried to argue, but their own hearts reminded them of the truths they had faced. Some whispered apologies to each other for past wrongs. Some simply sat in silence, absorbing the lesson the tiny crowned girl had forced upon them. Kalel helped Luma to a quiet chamber later that day. She sat heavily, her crown dim and cool against her head.
You risk too much, Kale said. If the crown fails...
If you fail, I will not fail, Luma interrupted softly. Even if it takes everything. He shook his head. You are human. You cannot carry all this alone. I am not alone, she said, looking at him. I have you, and I have every heart willing to listen. Meanwhile, Varric had returned to his ship, seething. He paced the command deck. She cannot be allowed to continue, he said to his generals. A child has shown the galaxy the weakness of my fleets, the doubts in my allies. If she is not removed, we lose everything.
One general spoke cautiously. My lord, if you strike openly, other leaders may rally to her. They already respect her strength without weapons. Varric's eyes narrowed.
Then we strike secretly. We remove her before anyone knows. She cannot be allowed to unite them with words and emotions. Back on Nareth, Luma was not idle. She met with leaders individually, guiding them through further experiences. She showed them not just pain, but hope. She revealed moments where understanding could prevent conflict, where compassion could outweigh conquest. Each leader left her presence differently, carrying a small spark of change within them. Kale observed quietly, guarding her from potential threats. Even as they worked to influence hearts peacefully, the shadows of war loomed closer. Reports came from distant sectors of fleets moving without explanation, of strange signals disrupting communications, of spies attempting to uncover weaknesses. One evening, as the suns dipped low, Luma stood alone on a tower overlooking the city. Kale joined her. They are preparing, he said softly. Varric's fleets are not far. They will come. I know, Luma replied, her eyes distant, but they will not come for me alone. They will come for the change I bring, for the truth I show. And that they cannot destroy. Kale glanced at her, concern written across his face. You carry more than any human should. The crown drains you every time you use it. She smiled faintly.
I am ready. Fear, pain, anger.
These are not my enemies. They are tools, and I will use them wisely. The city lights below flickered as shuttles moved in and out of the ports. Hidden ships approached in the shadows of space. The galaxy was stirring, and the tiny crowned girl had drawn attention far beyond Nareth. That night, Luma prepared the memory chambers for a grand demonstration. This time, it was not only for the leaders present, but for the network of leaders connected across the galaxy. She would open the crown fully, sharing her vision of truth, loss, and hope with anyone willing to witness. Kale remained at her side.
Do you think they are ready? He asked quietly. They have no choice, she said.
Truth cannot be ignored, and when it touches the heart, it cannot be unlearned. Hours later, as she activated the chambers, the crown pulsed with soft, then stronger light. Memories of lost worlds, broken homes, acts of courage, and moments of compassion filled every connected mind. Leaders gasped. Some fell to their knees, others closed their eyes in shame or relief. Varric's influence weakened. Some of his generals hesitated, unsure whether to continue following his commands. Across the galaxy, fleets paused, unsure of orders, unsure of their own motives. For the first time, the galaxy felt what Luma had carried all along, the weight of humanity's pain, the strength of their hope, and the courage of their spirit. But as the chamber's power grew, Luma's body began to falter, her crown glowed brighter than ever, and Kale caught her as she fell. Her breaths were shallow, her face pale, But her eyes remained open. They must see, she whispered. Even if it takes everything. The chamber hummed, and the city remained silent, bathed in the strange light of the crown. Luma's small hands rested on Kale's shoulders, holding herself up as she guided the flow of memories one last time. Varek's fleet in orbit hesitated. Their confidence built on fear and aggression faltered. Orders became confused. Pilots questioned commands. Generals argued quietly over strategy. A single human child, a tiny crowned girl, had forced them to question themselves. As dawn broke over Nereth, Luma collapsed completely, unconscious in Kale's arms. Her crown had dimmed, its energy nearly spent. The leaders in the hall were silent, too stunned to speak. They had witnessed power unlike anything in the galaxy. Not a weapon, not a fleet, but truth and courage carried in the heart of a child. Kale looked down at her, worried, but also full of awe. "You have done it," he whispered. "You have changed them." Outside, Varek's ships began to retreat, their plans faltering. The first step of Luma's influence had succeeded, but the battle for hearts and the war to prevent destruction was far from over. The tiny crowned one had given everything, and the galaxy had begun to listen. The galaxy was restless. Word of the tiny crowned girl had spread far beyond Nereth. Fleets that had once been ready to strike human colonies now hesitated, unsure of orders and uncertain of loyalty. Entire war councils argued quietly, their generals hesitant, some even questioning their leaders. The influence of a single human child had shifted the balance in ways no weapon ever could. Luma lay in the quiet medical chamber of the conclave. Her body was weak, drained from the use of the crown in the great truth demonstration. The soft glow of the crown had dimmed completely. Kale watched her, his expression tight with worry. Her breaths were steady but shallow, and her small hands rested lightly on the edge of the bed. "You have done more than anyone imagined," he said softly.
But they will not stop. Varek will come again stronger and more determined.
Luma's gray eyes opened slowly. "I know," she whispered. "He believes strength comes from weapons. He does not understand that hearts can change the course of war." Kale shook his head. "He will learn, but at what cost? You cannot survive another round like yesterday." "I must," she said softly, "even if it hurts, even if it takes everything from me. Fear and anger exist in every heart. If I do not show them, Varek will destroy what is left of humanity." Meanwhile, Varek's fleet had regrouped far from Nereth. His flagship, black and red and massive, led hundreds of smaller warships. He paced the command deck, furious.
"She has made fools of us,"
he growled. "One child has shaken fleets, influenced allies, and exposed weakness in our empire. I will not allow this to continue. We strike again, and this time we remove her entirely." A general, silver-scaled and cautious, spoke up. "My lord, many of the leaders who were hesitant before are now openly questioning their orders. If we attack, others may side with her." "Then we strike cleverly," Varek replied. "We target the humans, but we do not show our hand completely. We divide their attention and create confusion. If the child cannot protect herself directly, then the fleets will crumble without her guidance." Back in Nereth, Luma had regained enough strength to sit up. Kale helped her to a viewing platform high above the city. "They are moving," he said.
The fleet is coming, larger than before. Luma nodded. "Let them come."
"They will see the cost of aggression. They will see the choice between fear and understanding." The first ships appeared in orbit at twilight. The twin suns were dipping below the horizon, casting the city in long shadows. Luma stood calmly at the edge of the platform. Her white dress caught the last rays of light, and her crown glimmered faintly. Kale motioned to the security drones scattered around the city. "They are ready, but it may not be enough. They outnumber us." "We do not fight like they fight," Luma said quietly. "We fight differently." The strike fleet moved closer, weapons primed, engines glowing red. At first, the drones intercepted the early salvos, sending pulses of energy back that disrupted enemy targeting systems. But the fleet adapted. It became clear that a direct defense alone would not hold. Luma closed her eyes and touched the crown. A faint pulse spread outward, not strong enough to be felt across the entire city, but strong enough to reach the ships in orbit. She connected with the minds of pilots and captains. She did not command them. She simply made them see. They felt fear, yes, but they also felt doubt, shame, and memories of their own losses. Fleets wavered, engines slowed, and weapons systems hesitated. Entire ships paused in mid-flight. Orders were questioned. Doubts whispered quietly over comms. Kale watched in disbelief. You're turning them against Varric without firing a single shot. Luma nodded, her expression calm but intense. They fight because of fear and anger. If they see the cost of those feelings, they may choose another way. Some will stop. Some will fight for their conscience instead of their orders. As the ships drew closer to the city, confusion spread through Varric's fleet. Pilots questioned commands. Generals argued quietly. Some smaller fleets disengaged entirely, turning their ships back toward home sectors. Varric's carefully planned attack was failing before it even reached Nereth. Varric roared in frustration. "Stop this hesitation!"
Obey my orders! Destroy the humans!
But the hesitation only grew. One by one, ships powered down weapon systems or switched sides entirely. Pilots refused to fire, citing strange visions and feelings they could not explain. Memories of past victories and failures, glimpses of compassion, and a sense of unity they had ignored overwhelmed them. On the ground, the alien leaders of Nereth watched the chaos in orbit through the main viewport. Some had doubted Luma. Some had feared her. Now they watched in awe as the tiny crowned girl, frail in appearance, influenced fleets far larger and more powerful than themselves. Kale stood at her side, tense but amazed. "It's working," he said quietly. "They are listening, somehow." "They are," Luma said. "Even if they do not admit it, fear is a strong tool, but understanding is stronger." Varric's flagship tried to push through, but even his pilots hesitated. Doubt and fear spread like a virus through the bridge crew. His generals shouted, but orders were ignored. Systems failed, engines stalled, and the ship wavered in orbit, vulnerable. Luma's crown glowed faintly, a silent signal reaching those with open hearts. Those who were unwilling to listen were blinded to it, but those who were uncertain felt the truth touch them. Fleets wavered, allies turned against each other, and chaos spread throughout Varric's command. Finally, Varric's flagship faltered. Kale noticed the opening immediately. "This is your chance," he said. "We can disable him completely." "No," Luma said quietly. "We do not destroy him. We make him see."
Kale hesitated. "You mean—"
"Let him live after everything?"
"Yes," she replied. "He will remember this night."
He will remember that fear and aggression do not guarantee victory, and someday that may change him. Varric's ship drifted uncontrollably, engines failing, weapons offline. Pilots who had been loyal now refused to obey destructive commands. Confusion reigned across his fleet. One by one, ships disengaged, some surrendering entirely. On Nereth, alien leaders whispered to one another. Some had been enemies, but after seeing the events unfold, many now questioned their loyalties. Some pledged to join the humans in defense of life, not for conquest or glory. Kale helped Luma down from the platform. "You have done something incredible," he said. "You've changed more than just fleets. You've changed hearts." Luma smiled faintly, though exhaustion showed in her eyes. "I can only show them the truth. What they do with it is their choice." The battle that had threatened to destroy Nereth ended without a single human life lost. Varric's fleet retreated in confusion, but the influence of Luma's crown had already spread far beyond the immediate area. Pilots and generals carried memories of the night, thoughts of compassion, understanding, and doubt about their orders. Later, as Nereth settled into quiet again, Luma sat in her chamber. Her crown lay dim, spent from the effort of influencing so many minds at once. Kale sat beside her, silent. Words could not describe what they had just witnessed. "They will remember," Luma whispered. "Every pilot, every commander. They will remember what it feels like to question their own fear, their own anger. And that may save lives in the future." Kale nodded. "You risked everything to do it. I don't think anyone else could have." She touched the crown lightly. "It is not power alone that does this. It is understanding. And even the strongest fleet can be turned by it." Outside, the city lights reflected across the silver towers. Trade and life continued, but the galaxy had changed. Varric's power had been shaken, his fleets compromised, and his allies uncertain, and all of it had been done by a small human girl, a crown of silver on her head, and the courage to show truth to the hearts of the galaxy. Kale helped her to her bed later, watching carefully. "You cannot push like that again," he warned softly. "I know," Luma replied, "but one day every heart will have to choose. I only hope that when it happens, enough choose wisely." The city of Nerith slept quietly that night, unaware that the events above had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. Pilots, commanders, and leaders would wake tomorrow, carrying thoughts that could change the course of wars and alliances. And somewhere in the shadows of space, Varric and his few remaining loyal ships retreated, plotting their next move, unaware that the child they sought to destroy had already begun to shape the galaxy with something far more powerful than weapons. The tiny crowned one had survived another test, and the hearts of the galaxy had begun to change. The sun rose over Nerith, painting the silver towers in pale gold. The city was calm, almost serene, yet beneath the quiet tension pulsed like a hidden heartbeat. Across the galaxy fleets stirred, commanders whispered uncertainly, and distant stars hid movements that would decide the future. Luma stood on the highest tower, her crown glinting faintly, and watched the horizon. Today would be the final test. Kale stood at her side, silent as always. He had seen her endure exhaustion, danger, and the weight of countless hearts. Yet she never wavered. Her small figure, crowned and calm, seemed fragile, but Kale knew better. She carried the strength of humanity itself. "They will come," he said softly. "Varric will not give up. Neither will the others who fear what you represent."
"I know," Luma replied quietly.
"But fear is not enough to stop change. It is only the beginning. Today, I will show them what hope can do." From orbit, Varric's fleet was moving again. He had rebuilt what remained, but the hesitation of his crews and the loss of loyalty from former allies weighed heavily. His flagship led the way, massive and dark against the backdrop of stars. Inside the conclave, leaders of other empires gathered once more. Some had begun to speak openly, questioning past actions, admitting errors, and offering alliances. Luma had spent the past days connecting with them individually, helping them see truth through the crown. Now she would unite them all. The first wave of ships appeared in orbit just as the twin suns set. Luma's crown glowed faintly as she connected with minds across the city and beyond. This time, the pulse was stronger, wider, reaching not only Nerith but the surrounding systems. She did not command, she simply revealed. Pilots, commanders, and soldiers felt the truth in their own hearts. Memories of failure, of unnecessary war, of unnecessary pain, all combined with glimpses of compassion and courage. Fleets wavered, engines slowed, and weapons hesitated. The first strike was neutralized not by shields or firepower, but by the power of understanding. Kale watched the comms as Varric's crews argued. Some refused orders, others questioned their loyalty, and a few even whispered to their allies across the galaxy advising surrender. Varric's plan was collapsing before it reached Nerith. "She is doing it again," whispered one commander to another. "How does a child move fleets without firing a shot?" "Because she shows them what they have forgotten," replied the other. "She reminds them that every life is a choice." Luma stood tall on the tower, her gray eyes calm but intense. She did not falter under the weight of so many hearts. Her crown pulsed steadily, a beacon of light and strength. Kale remained at her side, ready to act if necessary, but knowing she required no physical defense. This was her battle, one fought with minds and hearts. The first confrontation came as Varric's flagship attempted to break the hesitation and strike, but the crews refused. Orders were ignored, and the ship faltered in orbit. Pilots turned their weapons off, and some ships began moving away, joining other fleets that had already surrendered or disengaged. Varric roared in anger. "Disobedience! I command you!" But his voice could not command hearts that had already seen truth. One by one, his loyalists faltered. Others who had previously obeyed with unquestioned loyalty began to hesitate, confused by feelings they could not name.
Luma touched her crown lightly.
"You may not listen to me," she whispered, "but you cannot escape your own hearts." Across the galaxy, commanders felt it, the weight of conscience, the echo of compassion, and the clarity of truth. Some cried quietly. Others clenched fists in frustration, realizing that fear and aggression no longer gave them victory. Entire fleets paused, waiting, unsure what to do. Kale looked at Luma. "You are risking too much," he said. "This pulse, it could take everything from you."
"I know," she replied, "but change is worth it."
"Even if it breaks me, even if I fall, the hearts I touch will carry the truth forward." Varric's flagship drifted, engines failing, crew divided, systems faltering. The remnants of his fleet scattered. Some ships surrendered. Others turned back to home sectors, unwilling to fight against what they now understood. In Nareth, the alien leaders watched in awe. Some had feared Luma. Some had doubted her. Now they saw her as more than a child. She was a force of hope, courage, and understanding, shaping the galaxy without a single destructive act. Kale helped Luma to the edge of the tower. Her crown glowed faintly, nearly drained. "You have done more than any weapon ever could," he said softly.
I have only shown them themselves, Luma replied. Their choices are their own.
But they cannot ignore truth when it reaches them. The final wave of Varric's fleet attempted a retreat, but it was too late. The influence of the crown, carried through minds and hearts, had already changed the outcome. Pilots refused to fight, commanders defied orders, and allies of Varric turned against him. The warlord's plans unraveled entirely. Varric himself was trapped on his flagship, isolated and powerless. Luma's crown pulsed once more, reaching him, not as a weapon, but as revelation. He saw the errors of his past, the lives destroyed by fear and aggression, and the futility of his anger. "You cannot win by fear," Luma's voice whispered through his mind. "Only understanding can endure. Only hearts that choose hope can survive." Varric's massive claws clenched the edge of the command console. His pride screamed for him to act, to destroy, to strike, but he could not. The truth she showed him pressed against his mind, unrelenting, and for the first time he hesitated. The fleets that had once been loyal scattered, surrendering entirely. Communications were restored. Pilots turned their ships toward Nareth, not as enemies, but as witnesses to a new order. In the city below, celebrations began quietly. Nareth had survived without a single life lost, and the balance of the galaxy had shifted. Leaders spoke openly now, alliances forming based on understanding rather than fear. Kale helped Luma down from the tower. She was exhausted, barely able to stand. Her crown glowed faintly, then dimmed completely. "You have done it," he whispered. "The galaxy has changed because of you." Luma smiled faintly, though weakness showed. "I only showed them truth," she said softly. "They will decide what to do with it. That is all I can give." In the distance, Varric's flagship floated silently, empty of authority and filled with uncertainty. He had survived, but he had been defeated without violence, without loss of life. The lesson was clear, and it burned in his mind. Back in Nareth, leaders gathered in the main hall. They spoke cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. Apologies were offered, alliances reformed, and new plans were made. The tiny crowned girl had united them, not through force, but through truth and courage. Kale watched Luma as she rested in a quiet chamber. Her body was still weak, but her spirit remained strong. "You will need time," he said. "You have given everything today. I will rest," she replied softly. "But tomorrow, the work continues. Hearts must continue to choose, and we must guide them carefully." The city of Nareth slept peacefully that night, unaware that a single human child had reshaped the galaxy. The fleets that once threatened destruction now moved under caution and understanding. Commanders questioned orders, pilots acted with conscience, and empires that had been poised for war now considered dialogue. Somewhere far away, Varric watched the stars in silence, reflecting on the power he could not defeat. He had been humbled not by weapons, but by the courage of one human heart. Luma's crown rested beside her as she slept. Its silver glow was faint, a reminder of what had been endured. Kale sat at her side, alert but calm. He knew that the galaxy would continue to test her, but for now, she had achieved the impossible. When she awoke, her gray eyes were steady. "The galaxy will remember today," she said quietly. "Not because of me, but because they saw themselves." Kale nodded. "And because of that, perhaps they will choose better in the future." Outside, the twin suns rose again over Nareth, casting light over a city that had endured, a world that had survived, and a galaxy that had begun to change. The tiny crowned one, small in stature but vast in courage, had played with hearts to hide her pain, but in doing so, she had also shown the universe the strength of humanity. And for the first time in many long years, the galaxy was quiet, not because of fear, but because it was listening. West.